How to begin literature review. This is the fifth presentation on the theme of research. For any researcher, reading is an activity that will go on for quite some time in their life. Even after research, they will continue reading. But reading for research is different from reading a novel or a newspaper or a magazine. It is much more focused and it has got very specific purpose. So let us see how you are going to start your literature review. What is this literature review? There are two terms here. One is literature and one is review. When we use the term literature, we can talk about the various reading material that we can lay our hands on. What kind of reading material can we lay our hands on? It could be government reports, it could be survey reports, it could be reports by organizations, it could be international bodies who release reports, it could also be the many journal articles that appear in a variety of journals, both on print and online. You would also find published and unpublished thesis and dissertation. So there's a range of source for your reading material. Now what we need to understand is reviewing is a totally different activity and collecting literature is another activity. So what I will do in this lesson is I will touch upon the review, but I will make a presentation to you on how to review and how to present what you have reviewed. This presentation will also be an introduction to starting your literature review and also telling you how do you begin, what are the sources for collection, how after you collect, what do you do with the literature that you have collected, how do you build a library of this literature that you have collected, and so on. So let me go straight away explain to you this part of it. So when we look into literature review, we are actually trying to understand the progression of ideas from one set to other, from one age to other, one stage to other. And you are also looking into the current debates that are there in that subject, what are the controversies that are there in that subject, and anything that relates to that subject. But now we become more focused. For example, if you are interested in finding out the returns to education, then you're not going to study about tax and how it affects returns to education. If that is your interest, you will read that. But if tax is not in your interest area to understand returns to education, then you need not read about taxes and how taxes are going to affect the education and returns to education. What I'm trying to tell you is literature also gives you a direction to what you are reading and to what you are studying, rather than reading everything under the sun in that particular topic. It becomes quite a lot of waste of time, and there is a tendency in the beginning for a new researcher, even I did that, to collect material all related to the subject and think because the word has appeared, we think that that material is the best thing that we would give. So there are a lot of things that can be avoided, that can be that wastage can be avoided of time and resources. So I intend to help you to understand what you should study, how much of material you should be collecting, and what you do with that material. So this varied reading will be available to you in different forms, and all the available relevant literature in that subject, you will learn to organize it in a particular way. Now, why literature review? First and foremost, when we do a literature review, we learn all issues that are related to the topic under study. So we are now interested in looking into topics that are related to the study, and mainly these are related to the questions that you have raised. So when you read literature, you will be trying to answer the questions that you have raised in your own way when you were doing the research statement and raising research questions. Now when you survey, you will also know who did research on that subject of interest, how did they do that work, when did they do it, how old is that research in that work, where was it conducted, and a series of answers you will find when you begin reading literature in the related area. You will also be able to identify the trends, the debates, the controversies, the research gaps in that subject. All of it will emerge only from the literature review. You can have discussion with people, but the discussion of people will not help you to arrive at what you will arrive only when you do your reading. And you will also understand that there is no point in reinventing many things that we do in research, because we know that, like they say in research, you stand on the shoulder of the giants in the subject. That means there are giants in the subject, there are authorities in the subject, there are people who are, they are known as the torch bearers for that subject. And what we do is we continue using their knowledge, their experience, their findings, their methodologies, and try to carry on our research. Remember, when we do a PhD, you're only learning how to do research. So this learning has to be done in a very systematic way, in which case it becomes very helpful for you to complete your work on time and also in a more meaningful manner. So there is no point in reinventing the wheel, as they say, simply because there are already people who have done that. We need to learn from them at this particular stage. We have to, while we do literature review, we also demonstrate that we are quite knowledgeable in that existing field that we are planning to study. We could also understand what are the earlier writers, and their articles become invaluable source of knowledge for our studies. They also become a source of support to our arguments that we may have in mind. It also, and also, there is a chapter in your dissertation which will be exclusively dedicated to literature review. So when you do a good literature review, you also get a good chapter on literature review that exhibits your acumen in reading. It also shows your ability to collect knowledge, synthesize knowledge, arrange knowledge in a particular way so that it is available to other readers to follow. So there's a lot of importance that you need to give to literature review. And along this way, you will also discover that while you read, you will be able to develop your own ideas. One of the very important things that happen with research is to identify research issues. What do I mean by identifying research issues? Research issues are those topics that the earlier writers have studied, have researched, have found, and then they have been published. That is called research issues. Issues are ideas that have been studied in the literature that you have done. Now, once you know what they have studied, now you come to the second part of it, which is what have they not studied. So you have to identify what is called as a research gap. Now, research gap is an important element in research work, because this will help you to understand the limitations of earlier studies. You may be able to understand the many controversies that exist in that subject. You may be able to understand which are those issues that you have in mind has not been studied by the earlier writers, which are those methods by which you want to study the topic that has not been studied by the earlier writers, and thus you will be able to come to something which is very original to you. And that original ideas that you are developing from existing literature is called as research gap. I hope you have understood. When we read literature of the earlier writers, we identify a series of research issues that they have studied. Now, after reading those issues, your mind will also tell you what are those issues they have not studied. They have raised a controversy, they have left it, there's a debate in that, or it has not been done in a place that we need to do. There are several issues that you may find out when you read literature review. I will work on the review part of it in the next presentation. So here I will just highlight these issues and then I will move on. So we will be able to identify the gaps and seek originality. When we do literature review, one of the very important things that we do is the conceptual framework. The conceptual framework means we are well aware of the theories that are related to our subject. In which case, I would say that reading the subject that you have taken to study, it could be in economics or political science or sociology, there are theories that are already there. Understand those theories very well. Look into the possibilities of different ways of applying the theories. Try and understand the assumptions of those theories. But you need to be thorough with the many theories that exist on that subject. And from those many subjects, theories that are there, you may want to choose one theory or two to explain a certain aspect of your research. So, from these theoretical foundations, which are called also the theoretical underpinnings, or also called as the ground on which your research is going to be built, it is a foundation of research. So, that is called the theoretical foundation. So, once you know your theoretical foundation, then you can build a conceptual framework. So, you can use elements of that theory, build a larger, loosely constructed structure, and where your questions can also be imposed into. So conceptual background has got the many concepts, the many terms that are taken from the theoretical foundations or theoretical studies that have been done, and you create what is called as a broad conceptual framework. So once this broad conceptual framework is done, you will also discover that what have been the methodology that these theories have used to come to the finding that they have arrived at, why they have used certain kinds of assumptions that they have used in the theory, whether you can use those assumptions or whether you may need to relax those assumptions while you're studying that subject, and you may decide even on the tools that have been used by them and whether those tools can be used by you, or different kinds of tools that are you going to use them, but they will broadly fall within the structure of these theories that you are studying. It is a good idea here to take up your master's textbooks on the subject that you are interested in researching, and spend some time reading those theories once again thoroughly. So once you understand your theories once again thoroughly, you will be quite at peace to know these are the subjects, these are the authors, these are the kind of writing, these are the important themes that are related to this particular subject. So once you know the structure, the theoretical foundation, and the conceptual structure, now you will also learn to identify your variables that you're going to study. As a student of economics, I know that we need to identify variables also for others. It is important to understand what are those important variables that we need to analyze. So variables refers to person, to place, to thing, or to phenomena that can be measured. For example, age, gender, then place of stay, then it could be the income of a person, it could be the caste of a person, it could be religion of the person. All these kind of things we will call them as variables, because this varies from one person to person. You can have different values for those variables. Now, once you understand these variables, you will, for example, as I told you, income or whatever we are given here. Now, of these things, you will again find there are two kinds of variables: independent variable and dependent variable. I'm sure that you know what these independent and dependent variables are, but I have always been careful in explaining these to students, because I have found that they get confused with dependent and independent variable. So, independent variables are those which are not affected by the theme in which you want to study. So these are the cause of the disturbance in the theory that you want to study. They are not the effect themselves. Independent variables are cause. They cause the change, and these are unaffected by anything that happens to the other variables. Age, for example, age is not going to be affected by any factor in your a study, for example, on earning. So earning is dependent on age. Age is not dependent on earning. So when we identify variables which are not affected by the study area, we call them as independent variable. So these variables are unaffected by other variables, and they need to be measured. On the other hand, you have what is called as dependent variables. Dependent variables are the variables which are affected by the independent variables. For example, earning. Earning is a dependent variable, because earning is affected by gender, by marital status, by the education, by the age of the person, by the school that they have attended, and so on and so forth. So earning itself is going to be affected by so many other factors. So that is how you will be conscious, and you'll be cautious about identifying the independent and dependent variable. And as you read literature, your one of the very important tasks that you need to do is start listing the variables. So keep, as I have mentioned to you earlier also, keep a notebook, though you may think about using them on the computer, but I still suggest that you can write these ideas, because these ideas, you will be able to look at them, and then at some point you can differentiate them. You may add more variables when you read them again and again. You may be able to identify more dependent variable or independent variables, as the case may be, because you will need all of them when you go to your analysis. Now, let's plan a literature review. First is, you must remember, literature review involves documentation. The first task you're going to learn in research is to learn to document. So have a place for study, and that place of study must allow you to keep your documents safely. Have your computer in such a way that they don't crash. Many often I have heard students say, my computer crashed. Now, there are no such times that are available for a researcher when your computer crashes on the day before you have to submit, or the month before you have to submit a proposal or your thesis. So first and foremost, remember, documents are very important. You have to learn to document your readings. Now, for this, how do you go about it? You may have an external drive where you save them. You could put them on your Google Drive. You could take a printout if you need to do them, whatever. But you cannot afford to say that your computer crashed. So first thing is that. Second thing I have seen is students don't arrange the documents in a certain way. So it is a good idea to document. If you are taking printouts and reading, if you still like that habit of reading with printouts, please file them separately. In the sense, you can tag them up. I'm just giving you a day-to-day way of solving your problem. So you can clip them or tag them. So all articles relating to one theme, tag them separately, have a cover page for it, and keep them separately. Another set of articles relating to another subject, keep them separately, and so on and so forth. So by the time you finish your collection of material, you will find there are so many kinds of documents that you have collected. You will now, if at this stage after collection, if you start searching for it, you will find that it is just maddening. So avoid that. It can be very easily avoided if you can plan a little more than usual. So plan them, clip them, keep them separate. Plan topic. This is a topic on, let me say it is on school and sanitation. All the articles on school and sanitation with respect to students joining or leaving the school because of toilet, put them together. If you have found something about human and wildlife conflict and all the methods that are used by farmers, put the methods together. In methods, now later you'll be again able to separate different methods. So what I'm trying to tell you is, go on collecting material, but at the same time, please start documenting. On the computer, it is easier, because you will find folders that you will keep for each of the themes that you have, and you can keep them in folders. So label your folders, and as I have told you earlier, the day you have saved, please write the day on which you have saved, or the title of the theme with the date you have saved. Otherwise, let me tell you, it will become very messy to handle this literature review and the end, because you will not know what you have read and when you have read, because that much of work is going to come out of this particular chapter. It's very time consuming. Therefore, right from the beginning, learn to think you need to plan. There is no second option other than planning for literature review. It saves a lot of time. It makes you mentally very calm. You don't have to get stressed because all these articles are in files and boxes. You know how to search for them and you know where to search for them. Then it requires a lot of hard work. There are no shortcuts in research. And if you're planning shortcuts, then research is not what you can do. So research requires hard work. Even arranging your documents in covers or in files or in books or in boxes or on a long table, if you have the place to keep all your documents separately on a table, go ahead and do that. Anything that makes you feel that your documents can be understood by looking at the cover page, please do that. Then it is also painstaking because each one you will have to arrange it separately. Don't mix up articles, don't mix up themes, all that has to be done. And you learn to become very orderly. That is one of the skills you will learn after completing the research. You will become very orderly with your work also. Not only this research work, tomorrow when you have to carry on your work, research work independently, you will also find that you know how to handle your records properly, documents properly. You will be much in order. And then you also know to fix up a time frame by when what article or what reading you will complete. That is also very important for you to do. So that's how the management side of literature review will be like. Now let me take you to searching for resources. This searching for resources, usually Google Scholar is a starting point for many researchers, though when I did my research, we did not have access to a computer the way and the internet the way you have now. So our job was to go to the library, sit down for hours in the library and try and read up whatever is available, write down whatever you want to available, or photocopy whatever was available. That is what we did, at least I did when I was carrying out my own research. So now what you can do is you can use a Google Research Scholar, and it's a search engine by using keywords. Now, I told you in the beginning when we were doing that section on framing questions, we will be able to identify some keywords. So those keywords, now you can take out your book from where you have written your keywords, and those keywords are the one that you can use on the Google Scholar. But let me also tell you that this Google Scholar, many articles are free, but many articles are not free. So in which case you need to copy the link for that article correctly and see whether the libraries that you visit, they have, sometimes libraries collect all these articles, they have paid subscriptions. So you may approach the libraries to ask for the articles that you are looking for. Also, the advantage with Google Scholar is you will find the citations. That means the number of times a particular article has been used by other scholars in their writing work. That can be very encouraging to you to know that you are reading the right kind of article, because this article has got some 1,000, 2,000 citation. Then you know that it is really a valuable resource on which you are also banking upon. The other open access resource is EBSCO. You can also search for that. Then books are also available there. You will also find ProQuest. So these are the other two research engines that you may find articles that you may want to read. But for us Indian scholars, there is another big resource that you can get, which is the UGC's InflibNet, which is called Shodh Ganga. Now, all the researchers in the universities today have been digitized. So your resources, as I explained this to you earlier, but I'm telling you this once again. You can search for the dissertation of particular scholar if you know. If you can search for dissertation by title if you know. You can look by theme if you want. These are the ways in which you can use the Shodh Ganga InflibNet resources. It is a very good resource for looking into dissertations. Because you don't have to go to individual libraries to get, and you will never be able to go to all libraries in the country, university libraries in the country. By going into the Shodh Ganga, you will be able to access all the digital reports of these theses that are available on the online. And this is a repository. It is a repository. Now it is mandatory that all these research books are put into this particular thing. So please make use of these three resources. And the third one, the other two, I'm sure that other two or three you have already been using because some element of reading you have already done. But the third one, which I'm talking about, please use them because you will learn how research has been done by various universities, which is a good research, which is not a good research, in which the literature review is done well, in which it has not been well. You will learn to discern. You will know what is right and what is wrong. You will be able to differentiate between good research and bad research. You'll be able to differentiate between good review and bad reviews. And if you have access to libraries, there is nothing like it. I would tell you, I would still say that visiting libraries and spending some time on in the physical libraries is worth the effort, because you will get some quiet time. You will get the time that you go to the library, you have a space to sit, you can write down, you can read, you can synthesize in a calm mind, and you will learn a lot about work when you are sitting in a library. So visit university libraries. Some colleges can also give you good libraries. Please also visit research institutions. Make a visit to some of the noted research institutions in your area, because that will also expose you to libraries. You will be amazed at the collection of books that are available in the library, the way library itself functions, the way the accession numbers are given, how do they arrange books in a library, how thematically they arrange. A lot of learning happens to us when we go to a library and try and understand the functioning of a library, which is a part of your, as a scholar, you should have learned how to use a library. Tomorrow, as a research scholar, as a researcher, you will need to guide your students. Tomorrow, as a teacher, you may have to guide your students, and then it should not happen that you have not learned how to use the library. So learning to use the library is an important skill that you will learn when you do research. Once you've complete research, it is very rare that you go back to learn how to research. So it is the best time to learn how to use a library. Also, libraries use software today, so you can visit the library, learn to use the software that they are using, and see the various things that happen in a library. It is worth going to library. There is no second thought about visiting a library. You must visit some libraries, important libraries if you can, at least the nearest libraries, if that is what is possible for you. So you will find that you need to sit down somewhere and start doing your work. I highly recommend that you learn the working of a library as well. One of the simple things that I have found is we don't read the preface of a book, for example. Now, when you sit calmly in a library, you will find time to go through the book, and the preface itself of a book itself gives you a lot of information. So these kind of little things that we ignore generally happens to us when we go to a library. We read in time, and we, out sometimes out of boredom, you may just crisscross the pages. You may see the last pages of the book. You may find concepts there. Some important concepts may be available there. Something definitely is available when you go to a library. And the other very important task that I'm guiding you before you do the literature review is about bibliography and reference list. This is an extremely important part of literature review. You need to make bibliographical lists and also reference lists. Now, this is often ignored, and I have found students at the end, they run around for, oh, which book did I read there? Which is this author? I can't remember. Then I start rummaging through all the papers, and then I find that I don't have that author, so I have to delete that particular writing simply because I have not organized myself well. So before you, that's why this lesson is on how to start literature review. And this is an important part, bibliography and reference list. All that you read around the subject goes into your bibliography. All that you can cite in your reading would go into your reference list. These are citations that you have made. So please do not ignore this list at all. So this will help you when you have to cite it inside your text, and it becomes a very useful guide all through your research. So also you will write down, I'm sure that you would have already seen how to cite an article, but you can keep in mind the age of the article. How old are these articles that you are collecting? Thus, you will now slowly begin to build a library for yourself. So, you are creating a collection of resources relating to your area of research. Now, this library you are going to build by using keywords. You can arrange them in keyword, your documents, you can arrange them by keywords. Now, how do you start searching? This is an important thing. When you get something online, are you going to read the full article the first time? Or if you're going to get a book for the first time, are you going to read the first book the whole time? Depends on you. Book, if you are able to borrow the book from the library, you can take about 10 days or 15 days, and you will be able to write up something from that book because the book is physically present with you. But if you're talking about online resources, then what you could do is you can also you can do it with the print media on journals. What you can do is read the abstract of that article. If the abstract of the article matches your research interest, it matches the research questions that you have written, then those kind of research articles you may want to download it and save it in the library. But without reading an abstract, just by the title, don't download it, because it may be looking upon another dimension with the same title but may not be your research area. So read the abstract, and if you have found the abstract useful, only then download it. Otherwise you will find that your computer also get downloaded because overloaded, because you are collecting so many articles of all kind. That you can avoid. Spend some time on each article, read it, the abstract at least you read it, and once you have read the research abstract, just based on that you choose whether you want to download it or not, and get connected to more related material of that. How do you do that? When you read an article, please do not neglect the last page of that article, which shows you the reference list. Right? Now, why did I say this? When you go to the reference list, that becomes a very important document for you, because that will tell you that'll it kind of a snowballs for you. So from there you will now be able to understand who are the other authors who have written on that article, and you may search for those authors and their books or their journals online again. So that is how one set of articles, that bibliography or that references will, the last page, that is the bibliography or reference list, you must read them very carefully, because that is the one that will give you more connections into the topics that you want. So a deeper review can be done later once you have collected a sizable amount of articles. Then you want to understand all of them together. You want to connect all of them together. That we can think of doing it a little later once this collection work is over. So preparing bibliography also is quite a difficult task. There are different, I'm sure, the methods of collecting, putting bibliography that you can learn it on your own. But here there are reference management software which is available to you now. I know that Mendeley is a very useful software. You can download it for putting down your reference list. There's also the Endnote or Zotero. These are the three important software I know which can be helpful in putting our reference in order. So this you can do it, keep it safe for you, all your author, title, page, publication year, publisher, everything it gets there. Plus you can even add the keywords and the abstract there. So that is how you can, when you're doing everything on the computer, then this becomes useful. These three tools or more maybe, if these are available, you could use them for making a reference list for your documents that you've collected. It is just simply not possible to remember all the documents that you have read, and therefore you must learn to put them in their respective places as you go by. Never ever think that you will do the reference work at the end of your research. You're asking for something which is near impossible. So please do it in the beginning, safely collect the names, put them into these softwares are available for you. Unlike for us when we had to do it in writing form, today you have everything in this format. You can easily put them into the reference tools that are available. So then there is another important thing that you can do. You can use an Excel sheet if you want, and make several columns depending upon the needs that you have. You can have the author, the title, the year, then the subject that it is, the abstract of it. Then you can write the variables, you can use the methodology, you can take the findings, or you can kind of debates, whatever you comes to your mind. You can keep developing an Excel format, and once you put everything in Excel format, one look at it will be able to tell you what this article is, when was it written, who was the author, who was the publisher, what is the page number, what are the main themes in that, what is the methodology that has been utilized, what is the variable that have been utilized, what was the size of the sample, which country was it done, whatever requires to your instead of narratively in a descriptive form collecting it now, you can put them in an Excel format. So once you put them in an Excel format, you will know that this article, one page of an Excel format, has given you all the specific description, which you will find it very useful to use it later. Of course, we were doing it in a tabular column that we would draw it and write it. You can do it on the software. So geographical area, sample size, etc. Yes. Essentially, what I have tried to help you understand is, to start research, we also need to learn certain skills or skills of managing our own research. And if you follow some of these ideas that I have suggested to you from my own experience of guiding students in their research, these must be really helpful to you. It could save time, and it could keep your library that you have collected for literature up to date. So the next session we shall look into literature review itself, how to review literature. So we have only seen what are the tools that you may need, what are the management skills that you may require to do research in this particular lesson. So please share with your friends, and also subscribe to this session.